start off with the all-important conversation of security this morning. You saw that meeting at the northwest region of the country, attended by President Bola Tinubu, who is represented by his vice, Kashim Shettima, and governors in the region. It's a UNDP facilitated event. So what is the outcome of this? On the one hand, Sultan of Sokoto saying it will take decades to actually end banditry in Nigeria. For some people, that was startling, particularly because we've been at this for over a decade anyway. But let's get into the issues and speak to people on ground. We're joined on the program this morning by the Secretary General, Renewed Kaduna Restoration Group, Mr. Yash Shinko, joins us virtually on the morning brief. Good morning, Mr. Shinko. Welcome. Well, let me start off with this.
Good morning.
Right. Let me start off with a statement of assaulted saying it will take decades to end banditry. On the flip side, we've heard the governor of Zamfara State, whom we just heard speak now, but he said it time and again that if he were to be given the powers, more powers as a governor, as a chief security officer, that banditry will end in days. So, decades, days, what is your take, Mr. Shinko? Okay, looks like the connection is frozen, but we'll get back to Mr. Shinko. He's a security analyst, really, so he has lots of perspectives on this one, particularly what's happening on ground and the time frame that has been at the heart of this conversation. Why has it taken us so long as a nation to get to the heart of banditry? It looks like the more bandits are arrested, neutralized, the more some other groups spring up and threaten the peace of the people in the northwest. We've seen the spate of kidnappings, killings, children really at the receiving end the most, particularly students. We've seen lots of kidnappings in schools, and Kaduna has seen its fair share of the kidnappings as well. So we'll get back to Mr. Yash Shinko, but let's listen to yet another governor speaking at that Peace and Security Summit in northwest Nigeria, the governor of Jigawa State. Take a listen.
It is my firm belief that the event presents a great opportunities for major stakeholders to find and reach consensus on fostering pragmatic solutions for lasting peace and security in the region, for common approaches to the regional cooperation, and for forging effective development partnerships on moving forward with our regional agenda for peace, security, and development. Lasting peace and prosperity in this region and in Nigeria as a whole is a goal we must painstakingly aspire to achieve as leaders. There is no emphasizing the fact that the insecurity situation in this region and indeed other parts of our country has for many years caused immense human suffering at massive social and economic cost, including loss of lives and means of livelihood, as well as reversal of development efforts. Going through the agenda of the two-day event, the way it has been structured, as well as the area and caliber of speakers, moderators, and panel experts, I'm very confident that we are going to be having candid and insightful discussions on the current security situation and the development challenges bedevailing the region.
We must also engage the federal government and international organizations, the development partners, to secure the support and the funding for our initiatives. By presenting a united front, we can attract more significant investment and drive sustainable development across our region. To facilitate regional cooperation, we must establish, and we have established a Northwest Governors Forum that meets regularly to discuss our everyday challenges and coordinate our efforts. These forums serve as a platform for sharing ideas, monitoring progress, and holding each other accountable. We will also consider establishing joint task force to tackle specific issues such as banditry and food security.
So that is the thinking of the governors, the leaders in that region. You may have seen former President Muhammadu Buhari also at that meeting. So it speaks to just how important this is. And it's not the very best of mix, really. So you have insecurity in the mix. You have economic issues in the mix. Then not to talk of out-of-school children, the health situation as well, particularly in that region, where Doctors Without Borders give out figures of just how much there's malnutrition in the region. So it's a mixed bag, not of good and bad, but lots of negatives, really. So it's important for those leaders to come together, put on their thinking cap, and ensure that these issues are resolved. But my challenge is, we've seen these meetings before.
You know, it's the original approach to combating insecurity in the Northwest, and indeed the entire northern part of Nigeria, has been long in coming. In fact, it's many years too late because of the implications that we're now witnessing, particularly for agriculture.
Yeah.
You know, there are reports, just very recent reports, that, you know, farmers in that part of the country may be losing billions of naira to ransom payments. They now have to pay, those that can even farm now have to pay to access their farms. And those that are unable to access their farms are being kidnapped or killed. We remember reports of the Zabamari farmers, I believe, who were killed, who were murdered in cold blood. These are the real issues. And then what are the you know, factors that are aiding them? There are reports that they, you know, use motorcycles to perpetrate their heinous crimes, for kidnappings, village invasions, and it speaks to the heart of the issues: underdevelopment in Nigeria's north, you know, the economy, primary health care not, you know, in the exact state that it should be. So one approach that is speaking about one subnational may not necessarily be enough, but, you know, a collaborative effort, you know, may go a long way. It may not yield result at the beginning, but perhaps it could also yield results in the long term. So this is the way to go, I believe.
Yes, I believe that too, Bukola. I mean, yesterday also at the Peace and Security Summit, the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, said that 51 billion naira will be budgeted to tackling insecurity. But then again, the question will now be, how will that money be used? I mean, in the past, we have seen monies budgeted for insecurity, tackling this, and for more than a decade, and saying again that it's going to take more decades to tackle insecurity and banditry in that region and indeed across Nigeria. You now ask, so if this amount of money is going to insecurity, what will now go to? There are other things: the economy, agriculture, education. There's so many things. So you talk about how this money would actually be spent to ensure that results are gotten. I mean, money has been spent in the past. What are the results? We know that the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they're all doing all they can to tackle these issues. But there's still a lot more to be done. Synergy will be an important factor to tackling this issue. It's not just working as an individual or as an organization, but working across security agencies, so that sometimes multiple jobs are not given to people to do the same thing in the same organization or in different organizations. I mean, implementing this money, how to spend it, will be a very important factor to tackling this issue, really.
Absolutely, guys. And you begin to ask yourself, is poverty a crime? Is it a crime, really? Maybe we should just officially say we're designating poverty as a crime, because most of the challenges we're facing as a nation, they actually have poor people at the receiving end. Top on that list, of course, will be insecurity. What you find out is that most of the areas that are, well, challenged by insecurity, where you have bandits on rampage, are rural areas. The farmers, the people that don't earn as much, they're not even middle class, really. And you begin to ask, is poverty a crime? You've heard about areas that don't even have a simple police post in that area, in the community. There is no security presence. They call them ungoverned spaces. But on the flip side, you have VIPs, people who have numerous security operatives following them. So you begin to ask, is poverty really a crime? And it looks like the punishment for poverty at this level is either death, kidnapping, or just uncertainty generally. You can just see the look on the faces of those people. You just can't imagine what they have had to go through in the past few years. Imagine just staying in your house and you don't know what to expect next, because you've heard that the neighboring village has been attacked, or maybe your village has been attacked, a school in your village has been attacked, children have been kidnapped, people have had to cry endlessly just to get those people back. So once again, I ask, and I think it's a question that has been asked time and again, is poverty a crime? And who is speaking for the poor people. We'll do our best.
Well, Kayode, it may not be a crime, but it just may be a very willing accomplice in, I forget the German philosopher now, his fraud triangle, where you have motivation, opportunity, and the third one. So in that triangle, where you have motivation, to commit crime, you just might quickly get on board the crime if you're a poor person. There's opportunity. We talk about the locals often who are induced by the terrorists with certain amounts of money. When the authority in question does not provide security, then the people who are, by the way, poor, become willing accomplices to the terrorists who are inducing them with money. So these are real issues that must be addressed, and they can only be addressed by deliberate investment in the local economy, such that the people can become self-reliant and not become tools in what I call the fraud triangle.
Which is true also, because apart from that, investment in education plays an important role in tackling this. There's a huge gap between the poor and the rich. It's not a crime to be poor, honestly, but the gap is a lot. So education will play a key role, which means that investment in education, in budgetary terms, when the budgets, putting enough money into education and ensuring, because if they don't have things to do, they're left with temptations all around them. The youths, the children, it's really easy to tempt them into joining and being accomplices in this insecurity challenge. So we urge stakeholders, everyone who has to be involved in ensuring that education is taken seriously in Nigeria. That must also happen.
Indeed, and just to support that point, one of the big terrorist kingpins, of the recent past, which would be Abubakar Shekau, reports say that he was a young Almajiri as a child, and he radicalism became very easy. It was, radicalized. Yeah. So there must be massive investment in education as well, such that the young children roaming the streets of the North do not become, radicalized, and we have a bigger problem on our hands, which is already big, by the way, because the implications are staring us in the face, and banditry is cancerous. It has spread, to the entire parts of the Northwest. And we hope that it doesn't go further down in this, fast-moving spread.
So, let's reconnect with Mr. Yash Shinko, Secretary General, Renewed Kaduna Restoration Group. He's also a security consultant, someone who's been in that region, understands the intricacies that play out. Mr. Shinko, thank you for joining us. It's been quite a challenge connecting with you, but thankfully we have you on phone. I'd like you to speak to the question I asked earlier on, the Sultan saying it will take decades to end this, and the governor of Zamfara earlier on saying that, well, if governors were given the powers, banditry will end in a matter of days. What's your take on this, Mr. Shinko?
Well, I think under the present system we are having in the country, it is very unfortunate that the governor doesn't have powers or control over the security agencies. Everything is centered at the federal government. The commander-in-chief has the control of the armed forces, and he decides to assign them to whatever duty at any point and at any time. And there are some challenges that if this government will be having those opportunities, I think the political terrain will still be devil with much problem more than this banditry. So as far as I'm concerned, it is a good thing that the Vice President has attended that summit, and it is not a new thing. Almost everyone in the country, and in fact in the whole world, is aware of this issue of banditry happening in the northern parts of Nigeria, particularly the northwest. And for these governors to meet now, trying to bring up some points with a view to representing it maybe to the presidency, as far as I'm concerned, it's not the major problem. They will have conversed together, go and meet with the president without holding any summit, because these issues are not all. They are not new issues. It's not an evolution where we will think of fresh ideas to tackle them. Our professional members of the armed forces are there. Service chiefs are competent. They are equal to the task. So, as far as I'm concerned, they will have met with the president, let the commander-in-chief meet with his security commanders and decide on how to tackle this problem. It is something that if the government wants it to end, it will end. So as far as I'm concerned, what the Sultan has said and what the governor has said, they have done their own part. But the governor, as the chief security officer, has said, is only by name. He cannot give a command to any of the security agencies, not even the police commissioner. Seeing as, for example, what has been happening in Kano State, where the governor will give directives to the commissioner of police and the commissioner of police will refuse. And when you go by the constitution of the federation, you cannot blame to the commissioner of police, because
so
the constitution is very clear.
You don't think it will take decades to end this? You think it can end as soon as possible if the powers are given the governors?
No, even if power is given to the government, it cannot end. How will we give the power to the governors? The constitution has to be amended, because anything to do with the armed in the country is under exclusive list, meaning it is a matter for the National Assembly to make law upon and to be assented by the president. So if we are to give the governors such a power, the constitution has to be amended. Then why should we wait until the constitution is amended to allow the governors now to maybe form their own security outfits in their own state, to procure weapons, to train them, and then before they can now start tackling this issue of banditry? I think the best thing is for the federal government to improve the number of the personnel we are having presently and let them have a common operation, a situation whereby they will strike at once. That is to say, by the time that they have made all their preparations, it is not for state command of the armed forces or of the police to start chasing these bandits, and by the time they started, when the other state are not doing anything, they will now leave that part of the state, go to another place, have a day until when they have seen relatives in that area, they will want to go back, then they will go. But once they will strike at once, the operation should take place maybe at the same time when it is happening in Kaduna, it is happening in Zamfara, it is happening in Katsina, Sokoto, and other parts of the country. In that way, there will be no hiding place for these bandits. But by the time the army will strike in Kaduna, these bandits will have their way to go to Kanji. They will stay there for a while. After a few days or weeks, they will now go to Zamfara, or they will have their way to Katsina and continue their activities. So I think the commanders of the armed forces, that is the Army, Navy, Air Force, and even the police, know how to handle this situation if they are given the opportunity to do it.
Mr. Shinko, I'd like to ask, because you talked about all of these agencies working together to ensure that this happens. So what is going on exactly? I mean, all of them should be working hand in hand in synergy to ensure that bandits cannot move to another state to attack when they had already done some damage in another state. Is it about intelligence report not reaching all of these people involved to tackle this issue? Or what is the major problem? Why can't there be synergy among security agencies so that they can work together?
I think lack of synergy is one out of many problems. Because even if there is synergy, but the personnel are not sufficient in number, it is something different again. And as far as the way we are seeing, the federal government is ready to finance, and it has been financing this issue. But at the end of the day, it is not yielding much of the result we are expecting, because the personnel on the ground are not sufficient to curtail these activities of the bandits. You can see they are improving their own number equally. Most of the time, we have just had last week that it has been cited, based on intelligence report, that some of these bandits have been cited coming from some of the neighboring countries trying to make their route to the part of Kanji in Niger State. And with this information, if there is sufficient number of personnel without the armed forces commandeering their personnel maybe to say, let me go to other states, from that level we have some number of personnel, let us pick them to bring them here. And by the time you lifted your personnel from Abia to Kanji, or to block the entrance of these bandits from the neighboring country, then you have allowed those in the southeast who are also involved in some activities that are inimical to the peace of the country to continue their activities, knowing that the personnel that have been holding the ground on that place have been lifted to somewhere else. So there is the need to improve the number of the personnel, and I can see just recently about 5,000 personnel from the Nigerian Army Depot have just passed out, and they have to be engaged on these activities. So that apart, we should also remember, in the first place, this banditry activities were supposed to have been tackled or handled by the police. The military were only called upon to assist the civil authority. And I'm sure it's because of the superiority of power in the firearms they are having, while the Nigerian police, their own arms are very limited. They cannot face those bandits. So by that implication, the military are called upon to do it. But even at that, the weapons the military are handling, the fire power of those weapons is not equal to that which these bandits are having. You will see a bandit having GPMG or holding rocket propeller grenade, while our military are holding only AK-47.
Well, we've had the military time and again saying at least there have been purchases of those platforms and equipment, but obviously more can be done. We'd like to thank you so much. Glad we were able to have this conversation. Mr. Yash Shinko, Security Consultant, Secretary General, Renewed Kaduna Restoration Group. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a moment. When we return, we'll turn our attention to yet another thing we're combating as a nation. It's cholera. We're not done just yet. So stay with us.